Hi everybody, it's Whitney from All the Shelves. This is my Q&A video. A few days ago I put out a call for any kind of questions that you guys might have that you think I could answer to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers, and you guys had a bunch of questions for me, which made me feel good. I always hate putting stuff out there into the internet and then like not hearing anything. But it also means that if I want to answer all your questions, which I do, I'm going to put this into two separate videos. So the first video that I'm filming right now is going to be about life stuff, kind of like my work life, my education life, and then kind of like the random questions that you guys had for me. And then the second video is going to be all about books. So here we go. I'm going to do my best to answer some of these very complicated questions. A lot of people wanted to know about kind of what I do day to day, either in education or work, or how I make things fit together. So I'm going to start there. And the first question I had was Lee Hope, who said, or maybe Lee Hope, sorry, who says, can you talk about your experience in education from undergrad to PhD? So sure, I got an undergraduate degree in film. It was called Media Arts at the school that I went to, which is basically just like film studies, and I also double majored in psychology because why not? I then went and got a master's degree in cinema studies. I was living in San Francisco and it was super expensive, so I crammed that into a year, and then I spent 3 years trying to get into graduate school. Getting into graduate school in either English or film, I was looking at both, is really, really difficult. I was not going to go into a program where I had to pay for it myself. I would only get into a PhD program in the humanities if it was fully funded, which I completely recommend. As I'll mention later, jobs are very scarce and hard to come by in this field, and so if you get into a whole lot of debt, that's just more pressure. So I was looking for programs that would fully fund me, and I wasn't totally committed to moving yet. I liked being around my family and my friends, and so the first year I only applied to 4 schools and I didn't get in. I started taking some classes non-matriculated at the local university, and sort of like helping my writing along, because in film programs you didn't spend a whole lot of time, the ones that I was in, you didn't spend a whole lot of time really working on the craft of writing. Mostly I was just sort of developing ideas, which did me a huge disservice. So anyway, I applied to 4 schools, didn't get in. I was pretty devastated about that. I really wanted to go to grad school. The next year though, I still wasn't ready to fully commit, so I only applied to 1 school, and it was the school that I had taken classes non-matriculated, but stupidly, I hadn't gotten letters of recommendation from the people that I took those classes from, and I just figured that at an academy they would all sort of be in conversation with each other. Well, it turns out at the university level, teachers aren't in conversation, so none of the people on the committee were the people that I had taken classes from, and again, I didn't get in. So the 3rd year that I applied, I was really dedicated to going to graduate school. I had been dog walking for 3 years, just going up in the trail with 9 dogs off a leash and letting them go wild, which was an amazing job, but not paying a whole lot. So I decided that really the only thing I could ever imagine doing was teaching and being a professor. So I went and I applied to, I believe it was 10 schools this time. 10 sounds like a lot. It might have been less than that. It might have been like 8 or something. Anyway, I applied to a few, and I got into a few places this time. So if you are looking to apply to graduate programs, I would say sort of cast your net wide, shoot for the stars with some schools, and go to the ones that you're not super excited about. Anyway, I got into a few, and I got into the local university that I had wanted to go to the whole time. So I am now finishing that degree up. It is in English with an emphasis on American studies, so that I could kind of incorporate some of the film stuff. All my coursework has been literature classes, but when it came to my oral exams and my dissertation, I have been able to incorporate some other kinds of mediums. So I did 2 years of really intense coursework. Like, it was so hard. I was working 80 hours a week at least on my degree. And then I did a year of studying for exams, which we have written and oral exams, and they give you about 120 texts that you need to, read and study and know everything that they could possibly ask you about. And it's pretty scary, but it's also like really, really satisfying year of your life where you're just studying. You don't have any writing obligations. Like, you just get to like take it all in. It was pretty amazing. So I did that, and then I've been working on my dissertation now for about 2 years. Yeah, exactly 2 years actually, going into my 3rd year working on this thing. Right now it's about 350 pages, which is very long for a dissertation at my school. But I'm writing about a lot of different superheroes, and so all of establishing all the historical context and stuff is taking quite a long time. So I'm writing about early American superheroes from about 1938, and then I'm stopping about 1945 or so. I have some stuff that moves me a little bit further into the late 40s with Captain America, but other than that, I stop pretty like right at the end of World War II, because I don't necessarily want to get into that big turning point. And I study the Kantian sublime and aesthetics and violence associated with superheroes. So I'm talking a lot about kind of like the consequences of the sublime and the political impact and the rhetorical purposes of the sublime, and specifically like the logic of the sublime. So if you're more interested in that, like maybe we could talk privately about that. So Books and Things asks, what age do you teach, and how do you think teaching literature affects how you read? Currently, and for the past 10 years or so, I have been teaching at the university level. Even as an undergraduate, I got opportunities to teach introduction to film courses. And so they were ranging from freshmen to seniors. I TA'd for history of film classes, and I taught a like critical studies in film in my master's degree, and then in my master's I also TA'd for a film theory class. And at the school I'm at now, I teach intermediate writing almost every semester. I've taught some intro to the major classes. The class is called Introduction to Literary Form, so it's basically just like a welcome to the English degree. I designed a class on adaptation that went pretty well, and then last semester I taught a class on superheroes, so like actually the thing I study, which was exciting. But teaching jobs at the university level are getting ridiculous right now. It's like 1 in 10 people are getting tenure track jobs. It's taking 10 years for people to get these tenure track jobs of adjuncting and postdocs and all of this bullshit. Honestly, it's getting, I think, quite unethical. There are so many jobs going to adjunct professors right now, and they pay their adjunct professors nothing. The local community college pays their adjuncts $2,000, and that is before taxes, per class, and they pack like 35 people into the class who are all paying tuition, and they're paying their university professor $2,000 for that full semester. Even if you taught a ridiculously full load and taught 5 classes a semester, you would make below the poverty line. And that is without any sort of benefits. So I think universities are completely taking advantage of the fact that all of us want to teach, and all of us are really dedicated to teaching and studying. And that we feel like we can't do anything else. So I decided that next year I'm going to give high school teaching a try. I'm going to be teaching 10th grade language arts and AP language and composition. That's 11th graders usually take that class, I believe. So I'm planning the syllabus. I'm going through all the rigmarole of teaching at the high school level. It's a public school, so I've got to get certified, and it's extremely frustrating. Next week I have to take a class that proves that I know my subject. So they won't take the fact that I will have a PhD, basically I will probably defend in December. They won't take that and say, oh yes, she probably maybe knows what she's talking about. Instead, I have to go take a 3-hour test that's $150, where I have to answer multiple choice questions about what iamb is and what a foot is and what meter is. I'm just thinking of poetry stuff, but it's also like a bunch of teacher acronyms that I don't quite know. I know how to teach people how to rewrite, but I don't necessarily know the acronym that the education field assigns to that practice. So it's really frustrating. You can tell, I think, that I'm frustrated. And I totally understand where they're coming from. The politics of it's crazy, but there's also a huge teacher shortage, not just in my state, but in the entire country right now. So we need to be doing something, and I believe that they are doing something to maybe make it more common sense when people have higher degrees, helping transition them into teaching high school, because we have a lot of people with PhDs who aren't going to teach high school just because of all of the bureaucracy, and that seems ridiculous. I applied to a few high schools. I got a job offer for every high school I applied to. They wanted me to be there. And I'm not bragging here. I'm saying that they really have a need for teachers right now. But up higher, the state and even on the federal level, they're doing everything possible to keep qualified people from teaching in these classrooms, and it's very frustrating. So I just went off on a rant. This video is going to be ridiculously long, and I'm moving on to the next question. I Love Pizza asked me about sort of my schedule. He's saying, you make time to read a lot, study, watch TV and movies, and go running. All of this with your busy schedule. How do you manage your time? Any tips? I am I am definitely a type A personality. I have a really rigid schedule, and it's because I have a pretty bad anxiety disorder. I'm revealing so much about myself. These Q&As are dangerous. But yeah, I have a bad anxiety disorder, so the way that I combat it is through scheduling and routine. So I eat the same thing for breakfast every day. I do my writing from the exact same period in the exact same period of time. I go running at the same period of time, sort of depending on the weather. But basically the same. And I eat the same lunch every day, and that helps me really pack things in. So I still work 8 hours a day, but also part of my work life is reading. Like this month, preparing for teaching high school, I read a bunch of books on the curriculum, and I could convince myself that that is part of my work life. So even though I was still getting in my sort of 3 hours of writing time in the morning, but then in the afternoons I could read, and I really enjoy that. So it's kind of cheating a little bit, I feel. Anyway, the other way that I do it is not having much of a social life. I have my really good friends that I love, and other than that, I'm not like a party animal. So I spend most of my weekends reading. And then at nighttime, that's when I watch a lot of like the movies and the TV that I watch. So it's not like a secret or anything. It's just not being comfortable wasting any time, because if I start to waste time, I start to get anxious. So I just kind of like schedule it all out. A Hermit's Progress also asked me things about the PhD, like what are my favorite things about completing a PhD and what are my least favorite. My favorite was that year of exams, and my least favorite is the job prospects for sure. It's daunting and it's terrible. But honestly, like I've been thinking about it, and I am super privileged to ever have the opportunity to spend this long of my life just improving myself. Even if I don't end up being a professor, which I'm not discounting it completely yet, but even if I end up teaching high school forever or going into like corporate law or something, you know, who cares? I still had this time of reading and studying and making myself smarter, honestly, and that's always what I pictured my life being about, and so that's been my favorite part. And then she was asking if I plan on doing any sort of like university videos, and I have sort of thought about it. Honestly, part of the reason that I do Booktube is to get away from thinking about that kind of stuff, because as you can see, it makes me frustrated and a little bit down on myself. But at the same time, I really want to help people, and I feel like I could, you know, make some videos about the application process, or what it's like to complete the coursework, or what you should be doing to kind of set yourself up to be competitive on the job market, whatever. If you are interested in those kinds of videos, and I see that like maybe some of my viewers are not interested in those, and like it would be like a different audience, but if you're interested in those, let me know and I will think more about doing them. And then she also asks, what's my ideal reading space, real or imagine? I'm gonna stick with real, and I like sitting in this chair with my feet propped up on the bottom drawer of my desk. I pull the drawer of my desk out, I put a blanket down, and I prop my feet up, and it's sunny and beautiful, and I just love my office space. I'm surrounded by DVDs and books, and I really love it. And then she also asked, what are my alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages of choice? Hang on. Big gulp. I'm a classy lady. Right now I got Coke Zero in here. I also enjoy a cup of coffee or 10. Getting into non-academic questions, Now Voyaging asks me, what is your favorite film? I have two answers for this. Three answers for this. If it seems like the people that I'm talking to don't really, like, they aren't like film buffs, then I say Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That movie's amazing. I've grown up with it. I feel like I quote something from that movie at least once a day. And I also think that that moment when Augustus's dad bites off the microphone and chews it is maybe the funniest moment in cinema history. So I answer that. If it seems like they're like real like film buff types, then I answer Rosemary's Baby. I think that movie is astounding. The camera work, the attention to detail, the acting, the music, the topic, the feminism of it. I love that movie. And then if it seems like they're like somewhere in between, not quite film buffs, but they like movies a lot, then I say Rushmore. Rushmore is my favorite Wes Anderson movie, and it is my favorite movie from sort of recent years. I think that it's like so funny and charming. Now Voyaging also asked me what made me think of my thesis topic. My master's degree, I wrote about violence in graphic novel adaptations, and I really was interested in aesthetics and the sublime starting in my master's degree, and I was continuing that over in my PhD, and I actually was planning to write about children in horror, but for a number of reasons I decided not to do that, and I decided instead to write again about comic books. I had already done some of the research, and I felt like the sublime was such a dangerous topic that that has some real political consequences, but we usually only talk about it in aesthetic terms and how the sublime can aestheticize things. So I was like interested in applying that to something that was super popular at the time to show just how dire those consequences could be, and that to me is superheroes. And she also asked who gave me my love of reading, and I don't know. I guess it was my mom. My mom always is reading. My mom read to me. I was the oldest child, which I think really helps. You have these parents who want the best for their kids and aren't tired out yet, and read to me, you know, right from the very beginning. So I think I got it from that. I got it from being anxious and wanting to disappear into another world, and I just kept going with it. I think with reading, if you get enough positive reinforcement at an early age, you just want to keep going, and a lot of my teachers were really good about that, gave me special projects, you know, put the stickers up on my name that showed how much I was reading, and I just started to put a lot of self-worth in that. So no one in my family are like huge readers, but they always encouraged me. Even the ones that weren't huge readers were always supplying me with books. People in my neighborhood were always giving me their discards, and I just like devoured everything. Marie Berg's question was, how did I start my journey into Booktube? Who inspired me to start my channel, and has it changed my reading in any way? I was looking into Booktube, and all I was finding were like the YA people, and you know who I'm talking about, like lots of graphics and accents a lot of times. And so I really like listening to podcasts and talking about books and hearing about books, and I was looking for that, and I wasn't quite finding it until I found Jen Campbell's channel, which I feel like is true of a lot of people who started around the same time as me. Like, people got really excited about Jen's channel, and I was with them. I liked how professional she was. She uses that channel as a sort of publicity tool, which I appreciate, and she's open with that. She's a writer, and she wants you to read her books, but she also is really sincere and uses her channel to talk about the things that she really loves. So I got into it that way, and then it kind of grew from there, and I very quickly decided I wanted to start a channel. I was looking for a way to escape the sort of academic way I was thinking about books and think about them on a more informal level. So I started, you know, a couple weeks after just diving into Booktube, I decided to make my own. And has it changed my reading in any way? I don't necessarily think so. Oh yes, it has, because I've done buddy reads and I've got a lot more lined up. So it has changed my reading in that way, and I'm really loving that. The next question is from Stephanie at That's What She Read. She said, who's my celebrity crush? I've got a few, and a lot of them are weird. I'm gonna warn you that now. I really love Michael Fassbender. That's not weird. That guy is so sexy. I can't handle it. He's so ridiculously good looking. And the other one, the other celebrity crush that I have that's a little bit weird is Larry David. I love old Jewish men, and that's basically all I can say about that. I love Larry David. The other celebrity crush is like not quite a crush because I'm so heterosexual, unfortunately, but I love Vanessa Bayer on SNL. Whenever she comes on, I just go, oh, she's so cute, I love her. So there must be something there. And then Stephanie also asked what's my favorite B horror movie. I have talked about it before on this channel, but it's The Brood. It's a David Cronenberg movie about a woman who starts to grow babies on the outside of her body in wombs that are attached to her that she bites open and produces these little monster people that do her bidding. What is not to love about that? But there are a lot of B-horror movies I like. I should do a whole video on B-horror movies. I know this is a Booktube channel, but I love horror and I've seen almost everything. Everything that like anybody talks about, I feel like I've seen. So I'll do something separate with that. The Deckled Edge asked me a question that I don't even know how to begin to answer. Do you feel like Leslie Van Houten should be paroled? And I don't have an opinion on that, which is bizarre. I have an opinion on literally everything, but I don't know. I have no idea. I had to Google her, first of all, so I've been so out of the loop on Charles Manson, apparently, but she was somebody involved with Charles Manson, and I'm sorry. Just no opinion, but I'm definitely about to go down a Charles Manson rabbit hole online, so thank you so much for that. And the last question is so difficult. It's from Marc Dylan, and he says, a question I would like to ask is how do you think literature and literary criticism play into understanding the society at large? What a big question. Like, basically that question is justify your life choices, please, and all of our life choices, right? But I think that literature, obviously, has a lot to do with our society at large. It's undervalued, but imagine if we lived in a world without it, without any kind of reflection in writing form, without creating stories through writing and, you know, learning about empathy and learning about other people through writing and other things. I mean, it just doesn't, it's not even conceivable to me. A world without literary criticism, on the other hand, seems very conceivable to me. And sometimes when I'm working on my stuff, I really question whether or not it has any kind of value at all. But I do think in the long run that literary criticism helps us understand trends that are otherwise invisible to us. That something comes out when we're writing and, you know, maybe it is just a really good story and maybe we can learn about the world around us through this story, but there are certain motifs and ideologies and politics and biases that we need to uncover and we need to examine, and that, yeah, maybe only 4 people are going to read your article, your super, like, narrow article on the Sublime and Captain America, but those sorts of things start to build up, and at some point that article may have some kind of influence on a major change. And where would we be without post-structuralism? And I ask that sort of like facetiously, but also kind of not. Like, where would we be without post-structuralism? You know, we would be taking everything at a kind of face value that I'm not totally comfortable with. Those are all of your life type questions about my school life and my life. Those things are so wrapped up together that I don't know the difference anymore. But I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a super long one, so if you made it through to the end, congratulations to you. You now know me so well, and I will see you in the next video.